I would say be very frugal, and make sure you hire the right people to work with you, because you can't do it all by yourself. You need to hire consultants or other or suppliers who can do some things for you, and make sure you hire the right ones. Like I threw some money away on a website company that I hired early on, who built a website for me, and they really did a terrible job. And they didn't answer my messages, and all that. It was just not a good relationship. So be very careful with who you hire, and get references, and talk to people, and make sure you have the right helpers. I
No.
think that's crucial.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Marc Demal. And Marc came from Holland and moved to the U.S. To come over here for graduate school, and got a chemical engineering or a degree, and went to work for some firms there, including some larger companies, J&J and others. And then afterwards, after working at those businesses, decided he wanted to go into his business, or to go into business himself. So developed a skincare product originally that was for his daughter, and then had difficulty getting some customer attention in the industry, and so has been navigating those waters, figuring it out, and having a good time doing it. So with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Marc.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely excited to have you here. So I just gave a quick introduction to what is, I'm sure, a much longer journey. So why don't we back things up a bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey got started coming over to the U.S. from Holland?
Oh, well, that's a long time ago. So I came for graduate study, and I could have stayed in Holland, but I had a bit of an adventurous streak. So I decided to come to the US, and I had some good opportunities here. And I ended up doing it here. And I've always kind of had a business bug in my brain. So I didn't feel like staying in academia and doing academic research. I went to work for a couple of different companies. And I really liked working on consumer products. So I worked at Gillette.
So let's maybe just, if I can, or back up a bit. So if I understand it, you came here to the U.S. To do graduate school, and what was the degree in, or what did you study in graduate school?
Oh, so I studied chemical engineering, and it was a PhD, and I had graduation work in liquid crystals, which was really interesting. I found some really interesting phenomena that those materials display, and it was very cool.
So now, and what, maybe it's one follow-up question to that, which is, so what made you kind of go in the direction, or decide, hey, I want to come to the U.S., I wanted to study? Was there different opportunities, or the right schools, or kind of what drove you from or drove you to come to the U.S. from Holland, or what made that decision for you?
Well, before I came to the US, I had spent a year in London as an exchange student at Imperial College, and when I was there, I was in a team with kids from all over the world, right? Students from all over the world, and it was just a really fun environment and really energizing, and I really liked that. And back in Holland, that didn't really exist, so that was why I started looking for having that sort of environment to work in the US.
Okay, so it makes sense. So you come to the U.S., you study graduate or get your graduate degree, and then do those studies. And now, as you're coming out of graduate school, kind of what was the first position you took, or where did you start your working world journey off at?
Well, my working journey was a little bit determined by immigration law because I didn't have a green card at that point. So I started out doing a year of postdoctoral study in Minnesota. And then with that on my resume, I found a position at Gillette in Boston, working on paper-made products, which was really fun. Paper pens and writing instruments are little things, but there's a surprising amount of technology that goes into it. So it was really fun to work on that and come up with some new ideas, new concepts.
No, it does sound, sometimes you take some of those things for granted, and yet there's a lot that goes into them to put that pen in your hand to make sure it works and to otherwise make those incremental improvements. So it works for Gillette. And how long did you work for Gillette for?
But for Gillette for about 3 years, and then I moved to Unilever in New York, where I worked on skincare, and that was the first time I worked in skincare. I was always interested in biological applications, so skincare was seemed like a great area to work in.
And
So I did.
yeah, and you hit on that. What was the, and kind of maybe just to dive in, what was the motivation for moving? Because it does seem like, Gillette, pens, paper products, and those type of things, going over to skincare is a fairly large jump, or a different or much different area or industry. So what was kind of that motivation to move from the first, or from Gillette over to the new adventure?
So this is what often happens in business, right? So Gillette decided to sell that business, I guess, with computers becoming in general use everywhere in the late 90s, and nobody was really writing much anywhere, so the business wasn't doing so well for Gillette, and it was sort of a misfit with the rest of the business. Initially, when I was there, the big strategy of Gillette was to sell like cartridges for, like, with the razors, right? They sold the razor heads, and then they gave the handles away, and that's sort of what they wanted to replicate in other industries. So Papermate was something similar. So you give the pen away and you sell the ink, right? So, but I guess that didn't really work out for them. So they sold my business, and my team was essentially disbanded. So then that's when I moved to Unilever.
Makes sense. So you say, okay, the team is a bit disbanded. There isn't that opportunity there anymore. So you move over to Unilever, if I can say it right. And so Unilever, you said that it was kind of more in the skincare industry, and kind of, how is that transitioning, or how is that getting into that industry, and how did that go for you?
So Unilever is an interesting company, right? They're enormous. They're all over the world, every country. They sell their products. And it was really interesting to learn about how all of that worked. And I worked on some major brands like Dove and Pond's, and the big skincare brands that Unilever has. And it's really fun to put a product on the market and see it in the stores. And you know that you worked on this, right? And it's in stores nationwide. That's really cool. So I like that aspect of it. But then Unilever also had, it's a European company, it was very academic in a way. Or the place where I was working was very academic. So at Gillette, we were very entrepreneurial. We were, launching these new pens, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, we came up with some other innovation. And Unilever, it was more about doing the research and understanding the skin, and trying to design new products that way. So I didn't really like that aspect of it, but for the rest, it was a great working environment. Everybody else was really smart, the products were very cool because they actually solved real life problems for people. So that's what I like too about it.
So now you go to, I think, or go to Unilever. We're there for how long did you work for Unilever? How long were you in the skincare industry?
I was there for 4 years. Well, I'm still in the skincare industry, but
I guess that's true. How long were you with Unilever working on skincare?
About 4 years. And then Unilever decided to close that lab. So then I found something else nearby, which was International Flavors, which was again doing skincare and also some home care. I worked on detergents, and skincare products and hair care products. They had a new technology, which was really exciting, which was encapsulated fragrance. So you would put a fragrance in a product, and it was encapsulated. So when you apply it to a towel, for example, and you rub the towel afterwards, after it's washed, the capsules would break and release the fragrance, and that was really cool. Like, it really worked. So you could get this fresh fragrance every time you took a towel out of the closet. So that application was really fun. But then IFF wanted to expand that to other product areas, to skincare, to hair care, and we tried for a long time, and it never really worked for other applications. Because either the capsules would clump together, or you couldn't get enough fragrance in them. There's all sorts of issues. So they're all very interesting problems, but in the end, there wasn't really anything that worked. So then I moved to Johnson & Johnson to do skincare again. But this was more of a marketing position, doing baby products. And at Johnson & Johnson, I really learned how to launch a product, because that was my job, to take a concept and launch it. And that was really interesting too. I had to work with people from all over the company, in different departments, because they all are involved in product launches, and make sure that they're all on board with my product that I wanted to launch when they have like 20 other products that they're working on, and make sure all of that happens on time, and so that you meet the launch window, because these products would go to Walmart and places like that, and they only allow product launches like a couple of times a year. So you have to meet that window, otherwise you lose sales. So that was really interesting, an interesting environment, very different from Unilever, where it was very academic and sort of long-term research. And then at Johnson & Johnson, it was all about like tomorrow, and get this out the door, and make sure this happens on time and that happens on time. And I did a lot of consumer studies there as well. So I really understood how consumers think and how they work, and why they pick certain products over other products. I did a lot of work in my team on understanding that, and I thought that was interesting too. And one very interesting thing at J&J was at one point that we worked on a skincare product, which was for babies who are sick, right? Who have like trouble. They have like snotty noses and stuff, and they have trouble breathing. And we did some focus groups with moms. Some of these moms, they were like at their wits' end with their child. They didn't know what to do anymore. Nothing worked, and so we tried to develop a product for them, and that was really sort of made me sort of passionate about this area, to help these people who are really like lost and don't know what to do anymore, and their child is suffering. So I thought that was really an interesting thing to work on at J&J.
Sounds like it was a fun opportunity, and sounds like it was a bit of a rewarding product that you're able to help out people that are looking for avenues to help their kids. So with that, so how long now? So you moved over to J&J. So it kind of sounds like once you kind of got in the more of the skincare, those type of industry, or that type of products, that's where you tended to stay, or throughout the different opportunities that came on or along your journey. Now, how long were you at J&J, and kind of how long was that portion of the journey for you?
That was about 4 years. So I was at J&J. Then J&J got into a lot of trouble. They had warning letters from the FDA. And I was working on baby powder and with talc, and that started to become an issue because people were concerned about asbestos in talc. And we talked to I met with toxicologists at J&J quite all the time, and they said, well, there is no asbestos in our talc. We tested it a lot of times, and we never found any. But yeah, even if you test something 100 times and you don't find it, it doesn't mean it's not there. There might still be a trace, or somebody will find something somewhere. And that's how J&J got into this talc trouble that they're in now. But that was after I left, right? So I left J&J because I had an opportunity at BASF to lead a team in sun and skincare. At J&J, I had made a sunscreen for babies that we launched nationwide and also in other countries. And that's another area that I'm passionate about, right? Because that's a real consumer problem, sunscreen and the effects of the sun on the skin. It's a big issue. Like skin cancer rates are going up and up and up. So that's something where you can really make an impact. So I like that area of the skincare market, and I moved to BASF because I was there. I had the opportunity to lead a team working on ingredients for sunscreens.
Sounds like it was an interesting opportunity. So now at some point along that journey, as you're going between, exploring the different opportunities, getting to work on a lot of fun products, learning the different skill sets with the different businesses and how they approach. I think you mentioned at one point you kind of started to work on a product, maybe on the side, and you correct me where I'm wrong, that was kind of for your daughter to help with some skin issues or skincare issues of hers or an idea she had, or help me fill that in or make sure I don't slaughter it too bad.
Yeah, that was later, right? So after I left BASF, I started my own company, which was a consulting company, and I was helping entrepreneurs who wanted to launch their own cosmetic products, and I helped them develop it and bring it to the market. And I was working with these people running startups, and to me, it sounded like, well, this is something that I can do, right? It's not very complicated. You just make the product and you launch it, and you don't need a PhD to do that. So I've always been looking for business opportunities in the industry, because I've always had that entrepreneurial bug, like thinking about, well, I really want to run my own shop someday. So then this issue happened with my daughter, who had very dry skin, and she was about 6 or 7 at the time, and her pediatrician recommended these barrier creams, which are things like Aquaphor, which are really thick and sticky, and just horrible to use. And my daughter just wouldn't use them. She thought they were like medicines and medical products, and she wouldn't use them. And that just gave me the idea that we need to make something that's better for kids, that kids can use, and it helps them. So that's when I started my company. I started thinking about a formula and about a brand name and all these things that come into play.
So let me ask one thing, because you were at that time, were you still doing the consultancy business that you'd started at that point, or kind of how did that transition? Was it started the business that you're doing, with the sprung from the idea from your daughter, jump in full time, or kind of started that as a side hustle or on the side, or how did that transition go? And kind of, maybe you're still doing both today, but help us to fill that in a bit.
Yeah, so I'm still doing both today, right? Because the product doesn't really bring in the money yet. So I do need to make some money. So the consulting business is that's what pays the bills. But I have good hopes for my brand. I've had only good feedback for it. But there's been so many challenges getting that on the market, more than I expected. So I'm getting some traction, but it's not easy, not as easy as I thought.
And I'm just curious to the degree that you can share in that is, kind of what are those hurdles that you're facing? Because I think that, what you're facing is what a lot of startups do, right? Everybody has what is a great idea. You start to get maybe a prototype, proof of concept, make a small batch, and then you quickly find out that, some of the things that you thought weren't going to be difficult or were going to be, simple or easy to breeze through, or otherwise weren't going to be hurdles, are much more difficult, or take more time consuming, or take more effort. So kind of help us fill in kind of what are some of those maybe hurdles that you're facing, and how have you dealt with them or worked to overcome them?
Yeah, so there's a lot of them, right? So making the product is easy. I know what the ingredients are. I know how the formula is. I know what I want in the formula and what I don't want. So that was the easy part, because that's my background. But just marketing it and selling it, that's not so easy, right? That's a lot harder than I thought. So you can make a wonderful product like we did, right? And it fulfills a real consumer need. But then if people don't know about it, who's going to buy it, right? So you can advertise, and even if you advertise as much as you want, if the website doesn't work right, and people are still not going to buy it. And there are still so many different parts to it in terms of marketing that I'm still learning about. So and everything in marketing is very expensive. I found that very quickly. One of the first mistakes that I made was that in our area in Connecticut, there's a parents magazine which is called Westchester Parent, and so I figure, well, that's a great place to advertise my product, because it's all parents, and they all have kids, and they all need, at least some of them will need this product. So it's a great place to advertise. So I spoke to those, and they approached me about advertising, which is another thing that should give me some hesitation. But it turned out it was over $1,000 to place an ad, and so I did that, and then I got like 0 return. So I got no leads. So that was a total waste. And I quickly learned that you have to be very careful with where you spend your dollars. There's so many people who want to take your money. Like, I'm constantly being emailed by people who want to sell the SEO services or website design or what have you, all these different parts. And there's people from all over the world, from India and from China and all these different places. They all want me to send them money to say they can help put my product on the first page in Google, which is never going to happen. So I've become very hesitant with spending marketing money. So that's a big learning that I had.
No,
And the
and I
other,
think that that is hard, right? So I mean, I think that
yeah,
that's where a lot of startups get to is you got a great idea, you can the product's great, and now how do you let people know and how do you get aware of it? Because one is, it is hard. I think, just because you make a better mousetrap doesn't mean everybody's going to buy the better mousetrap, especially if they don't know about it. But even two is, there's a lot of great people, a lot of great services out there that help you along the way. And there's also plenty of, snake oil salesmen and charlatans and people that will take your money and don't give you much of a return. And, if it's your first go round, and even if it's your second or third go round, and you're in, you're trying to figure it out, trying to figure out the industry and how to do it, it's not as straightforward as they always make it look like on TV and movies and the books. And so I think that's, one that you always have, it takes a while to navigate. And if you can navigate it, and sometimes, it's just too difficult or too expensive to navigate. And other times you figure out your niche or your way of doing it. But I think, kind of what you're hitting on is what I think a lot of businesses experience as well.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, no, that's something to be very wary of all these different people wanting money from you. But for the rest, I found some good consultants to work with, and there's plenty of people who do want to help you. So I have a core group of people that I work with that are really helpful, and that have been a lot of help. So it is possible to find good consultants and good companies that will actually help you sell your product. So I have good hopes with that going forward. I have a couple of good firms that I'm working with, and sales are beginning to come in, so it's working. In the beginning, when I first started, I was sort of thinking like, if it doesn't sell online, I'll just sell it in person at trade fairs and in stores and things like that. But when I started doing that, and it worked, I can sell product at trade fairs. But if I'm there, I spend the whole day there at a trade fair and I sell like 10 bottles. And it would never be a good use of my time to do that. So that route sort of went away very quickly. So you really have to think about your marketing channels. Where are you going to sell? The thing is that in stores, a lot of stores are chain stores. So they manage their vendors on a national level. So for example, in our neighborhood, there is a store which is sort of like a natural product store, but they are a national chain. It would be a great fit for my product, but they're a national chain, and the purchasing is all managed on a national level. And there's so much competition, you will never get in on the national level. So to get press and to get attention, you really have to either have something really special that people are excited about, or you need to spend a lot of money on marketing and advertising and on influencers and things like that. So it's definitely a big challenge, but it's interesting to learn about all this stuff.
No, and it is certainly a learning curve. It's interesting to learn. Sometimes you have to pay a lot of what, quote unquote, stupid tax, which is just learning the mistakes that you have to make along the way in order to not make them again. And I think every business goes through that. And sometimes it's, hey, you pay the person to do the SEO and you don't get the return. And sometimes it's, hey, we'll pay for online ads. And I think, there's a misconception. All I have to do is go and advertise on Google or Facebook and everybody will buy the product. And that's not always true. And so, it always is interesting that you have to navigate that way to figure out sometimes what doesn't work in order to find out what does work. And sounds like that's, a lot of great learning that's going on with the business and starting to gather traction on that front as well. So
yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
So now with that, so now as we've kind of reached a bit of the present day of your journey, always a good time to jump to the two questions I like to ask towards the end of each episode. The first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
Well, the worst one is probably what I already said, right? It was spending all that money on advertising and not getting a return. So I learned that I have to be much more careful, and also that originally the marketing budget that I set for my business was way too low. So whatever marketing budget you have, triple it or quadruple it. That's how much you need to spend. That's what I learned as well, especially for consumer businesses.
Yeah, it sounds like, and I think that, kind of what almost circling back to what I said, which is I think people have sometimes a conception of, hey, because you see it all over, and you see, hey, oh, I started this business and I just spent no money or a little bit of money on advertising dollars, and it blew up it went viral on socials. And sometimes that happens. It's always a possibility, but I think it gives people the misconception that that's how every business is, and you just have to have, it'll magically just take care of itself. And I think then you get into it and you have to figure out, hey, this marketing is a big part of the business in order to get the word out so people know. So sounds like a good easy mistake to make, but a good one to learn from.
Sure.
Second question now that I ask is, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I would say be very frugal, and make sure you hire the right people to work with you, because you can't do it all by yourself. You need to hire consultants or suppliers who can do some things for you, and make sure you hire the right ones. Like I threw some money away on a website company that I hired early on, who built a website for me, and they really did a terrible job, and they didn't answer my messages, and all that. It was just not a good relationship. So be very careful with who you hire, and get references, and talk to people, and make sure you have the right helpers. I think that's crucial.
And I love that, because I love, on the one hand, I like the acknowledgement or the recognition. Hey, you don't have all of the expertise all the time, especially as you're getting going now. You have to still wear a lot of hats, still get a lot of things done. But when you get to critical areas where you're just lacking that information or that experience, it is worthwhile to find those people that can help you to fill in those gaps. And yet, on the other hand, you still have to be careful, because there are plenty of people out there that say that they'll help you fill in those gaps, happy to take your money, and then all you're left with is a lower bank account and not a lot to show for it. And so I like that balance of that guidance.
Yep.
Well, now as we're wrapping up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
So go to our website. It's nothatchnaturals.com, and there's contact information there. You can email at info@nothatchnaturals.com, and that will go to me. And that's really the best way to get in touch.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage everybody to reach out to you, connect with you, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So
yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review so that we can make sure to share these journeys with even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. Last but not least, if you ever need help with your startup, your small business with patents or trademarks, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Marc, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks very much.